And welcome to Maple Leafs Man Advantage. I am Hawkeye, and to let you know, this will be the last video I do for this particular hockey season. The Leafs are out. Couldn't quite get to the semifinals again. They got smoked on home ice twice. This will be the last video. I did like 70 something videos, pretty good. So I'm going to do one on the 1975 NHL Playoffs, see how the Leafs fared, and see how the playoffs went in total for the NHL. But, of course, there is playoffs going on right now for 2025. And, I was wrong about Carolina. I didn't say they were going to win. I didn't say that. I did think they were going to do a little bit better. They're getting manhandled by Florida. I just got to have faith in these guys. They won the Stanley Cup last year. That's on me. That's usual, though. I usually can't tell who's going to win the Stanley Cup very well, or usually get an idea who's going to win. For example, Bobrovsky and Skinner both got 3 shutouts. Excellent job there for like a total playoff. We're not even in the finals yet. Thing with Skinner, if you score on him, you're going to beat him. That's odd. All of his wins, I think, are shutouts, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyways, and then in the hockey pool, I may have told you about, I'm in 21st place now. Climbed my way at a 28th. Who is leading? My cousin Jack, who won the regular season pool as well. My vote for him to be the next president of MLSE for the hockey side of things, where Brendan Shanahan was, I think he knows his stuff. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the 1975 NHL playoffs, and I will say, if you like this video, I'd appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up or hit like. As well, you can subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. Got lots of other videos on here. And if you want to comment on anything, go ahead and do so. That would be great to talk some hockey. So the Leafs are in the 1975 playoffs, but boy oh boy, she's going to be a tough road. They finished the season with 31 wins and 78 points. Now the playoffs were set up that the leader of each division would get a bye. They wouldn't have to play in that opening round. That can be problematic. We're going to see how that goes here. In the Adams, where the Leafs were living at this time, it was the Buffalo Sabres who had 49 wins and 113 points. So the rest of the playoffs, you'd have 8 other teams. So of those 8 teams, it would be 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 for the rest of those teams. The Leafs, where were they on that list? They were in dead last. They were the 8th team. So they were the last team to get into the playoffs. So they'd be playing the number 1 team. This is going to, as I said, tough road. They're going to play the Los Angeles Kings, who appeared to be a strong team. They had 42 wins and 105 points. Taking a deeper look into the Kings, they were coached by former Leaf Bobby Pulford. They had a nice balanced attack as Bob Nevin led the team with 31 goals. Mike Murphy also had 30. But they had 5 other 20-goal scorers. You had Dan Maloney and Butch Goring. They had 27. Juha Whitting had 26. Bob Berry had 25. And Tom Williams had 24. Now, the Leafs had to be aware of Maloney, who would later play for the Leafs, as well as Terry Hutchison. He'd also play for the Leafs. Terry Harper and Bob Murdoch on the ice. They could mix things up for sure. In net, they had Rogie Vachon, who put up some good numbers. He had 27 wins and a 2.24 goals against average and 6 shutouts. He led the NHL with his 9.27 save percentage. Excellent numbers there. If needed, the Kings also had Gary Edwards, who put up good numbers himself. He had a 2.35 goals against average, 3 shutouts, and a 9.16 save percentage. Also pretty darn good there. So for the Leafs, they had Pulford's old Stanley Cup winning teammate Red Kelly behind the bench now. The Leafs also had Darryl Sittler with 36 goals. Ron Ellis had 32. They also had a few other 20-goal scorers. They had Errol Thompson with 25, Blaine Stoughton with 23, and Ing Hammerstrom with 21. Now, the Leafs had Tiger Williams, Dave Dunn, and Brian Glennie out on the ice. That could mix it up as well. So in net for the Leafs, they had Doug Favell with 12 wins and Dunk Wilson, who had 8 wins. But instead, the Leafs are going to go to somebody else here. They're going to turn to the guy who actually, of the goalies they played, I think they had at least 4 goalies that they played this year. They're going to go with the guy who had the best numbers, and that was Gord McRae. He had a 3.22 goals against average during the season, and he pulled in 10 wins for the Leafs. So game 1 is in LA, and it must have been a tightly contested match. They went into overtime, and then it was Mike Murphy who potted the winner for the Kings. Vachon had 28 saves, and the Kings skated away with a 3-2 win. So game 2 was at Maple Leaf Gardens. Murphy had 2 goals. He was playing well this series, and Vachon had 43 saves. This 2 teams skated into overtime once again, but this time it was Stoughton who scored the game winner, and the Leafs won this one 3-2 in overtime. So we're tied up at 1. It's a best of 3, by the way. So whoever wins 2 is advancing. Very short series. McRae had 39 saves for the win in game 2. So the deciding game was back in LA. Both McRae and Vachon, both of them pulled in 21 saves in this game, but it was Hammerstrom who scored the game winner, and the Leafs won the game and the series 2-1. So the Leafs surprised many people in upending the Kings and going into the second round. So this will pit the Leafs up against the number 1 team in the entire league now. And that was the Philadelphia Flyers, who happened to win the Stanley Cup the previous year. Now, the Leafs should be well aware of their goaltender in Bernie Parent. He used to play in Toronto. And this is a tall ask for the Leafs. Here, playing Philly, the Stanley Cup winners. See how it goes here for you guys. You're in the second round. And interestingly, I guess it probably isn't a trivia question anymore, but maybe it is because the Leafs haven't won a cup since. But who was the first goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs to win a playoff series after their 1967 Stanley Cup? If you asked me that question, I probably would have said Bernie Parent or Jacques Blanc, maybe Mike Palmateer. And if I was still wrong, which I would have been, I might have said Wayne Thomas. No, it was Gord McRae. He was the first goalie to pull in a series win for the Leafs after the 67 Cup. Now, game 1, it's in Philly, and the Leafs were actually leading 3-2 going into the third period. But Philly answered back with 4 goals of their own in the third. Rick McLeish scored a hat trick, including a power play marker, and had an assist as the Flyers won 6-3 to open the series. Tough period there for the Leafs. Toronto needed to bounce back and see if they could take one on the road here from Philly. That would be great if they could do that. Philly, though, they were playing defense first, and Toronto only mustered 13 shots in game 2. Terry Crisp had 2 goals, and the Flyers won 3-0, taking both games at home. Game 3 was played at Maple Leaf Gardens. McRae playing well. He made 25 saves. But Gary Dornhofer, he scored the game winner just a few minutes into the game. Parent made 31 saves for his second consecutive shutout. And the Flyers took game 3 by a 2-0 score. And, they had a total stranglehold on the series, up 3-0 to the Leafs. So, game 4, the Leafs need to get their offense clicking here. They haven't scored since game 1. And I saw this game, a version of it. It was from Hockey Night in Canada on CBC. To begin the game, Dave Hodge and Howie Meeker were talking about the lack of goals the Leafs were scoring, and what they needed to do to turn the series around, which is an amazingly tall ask. Meeker said the Leafs need to get into the Flyers' zone, throw the body, and be aggressive against the Flyers. Yeah, that is always an excellent game plan. We will see how the Leafs follow the game plan for Game 4 at Maple Leaf Gardens here. For the game, it was Bill Hewitt and Brian McFarland that did the play-by-play for the game. In net, we had Perrant for the Flyers and McRae for the Leafs. So there you have it. So for the game, the Leafs ended up scoring first when Blaine Stoughton pumped one past Perrant on a gorgeous pass from Dave Keon. Of course, the crowd starts chanting, "Go, Leafs, go." Yeah, that's not a new chant, guys. As the Leafs are up 1-0, trying to get these guys fired up. I'm sure they are. Let's keep the momentum going. Soon after, though, Reggie Leach was bringing the puck into the Leafs zone and tucks one into the Leafs net to tie the game up at 1. On an icing, Bobby Clark gives Turnbull a stick in the face. That's Ian Turnbull. And the play is whistled dead. I thought that was pretty dirty. This isn't breaking news. I thought Bobby Clark was a pretty dirty player. But the Leafs go on the power play after Borje Salming was tripped up by Reggie Leach. Ellis beat his old netminder on a pass from, believe it or not, Salming. Excellent there. Leafs go up 2-1, taking the series lead again. We see Harold Ballard with King Clancy, who was violently snapping his gum up in Ballard's suite at the Gardens there. You generally saw them, like in a game in the Gardens, they'd always show like Ballard or these guys in the suite because they were watching the game. And I'm good action here, and I'm happy the Leafs are keeping it close. Very good. They're not getting run out of the building by the Flyers, who had won the Stanley Cup the previous season, so that's good. Now, Hammerstrom gets called on taking Rick McLeish down. Leach then scores his second of the game and fires on a nice low shot to tie the game at 2. The score stays that way through the first period, and we're all tied up at 2 here. In the second frame, Clark worked his way to the net with a puck and swept it past McRae. Oh, dear. The puck was sliding into the net, but Jim McKinney grabbed it before it went in and got it out before the puck went in the net. In the end, though, Dornhofer chips a beautiful pass over to Bill Barber, who pops one past McRae, and now the Flyers take the lead, and they're up 3-2. Now, the Flyers start to take control of the puck and the play after taking the lead here. The Leafs need to tighten the game up or it could slide away from them. Dave Dunn and Dave the Hammer Schultz went at it, and Schultz, he certainly won this fight as Dunn could not get an arm free on their little tussle, and it's 3-2 Flyers after 2. In the third period, McFarland mentions the Flyers assistant coaches who were Barry Ashby, who had played with the Flyers the year before, and Mike Nikolic, who would later coach the Leafs from 1980 through 84. That's in the future a little bit here. And the Leafs ended up tying it up on a crazy little play as Williams fired one in the net. Perrant didn't glove it, and it bounced off of him, giving a juicy rebound, and into the net it goes, when Ellis jumped in and scored on the rebound for his second of the night. Got a good look at Stoughton coming in on a drive with his long hair and furry chops. Very, very 1975. No lid. Looking very 70s. Very groovy. Ellis comes in looking for the hat trick now. But on the shot, Perrant kicks it beautifully into the corner. That was something Perrant was excellent at. No further scoring in regulation time. Tied up at 3. And the Leafs are a little lucky as the Flyers rang the post maybe 4 times tonight. But those don't count. They're not in the net. Now, early in overtime, the Flyers won it on a play where Schultz brought the puck into the zone and passed it over to Moose DuPont, defenseman, who scored the winner through McRae's legs. DuPont ended up running on the ice, which I swear I saw him doing that in the previous Stanley Cup Final 1974. So maybe it's like Mike Foligno when he would jump in the air. That was his patent patented goal celebration for DuPont there. So the Leafs are eliminated. They're swept right out of the playoffs. Can't come down on them too hard. They beat the Kings in the opening round, and they're playing the Stanley Cup champions from the previous season, and they're trying to progress. There was some progression going on this year for the Leafs. So there you have it. Now, looking at the Leafs, it was Bladen Stoughton who led the team in the playoffs with 4 goals, 6 points. Dave Keon had 5 assists. They had 4 power play goals, so Stoughton, Williams, Daryl Sittler, and Ellis, they all scored power play goals. Stoughton and Hammerstrom had the game winners. And who else? But Tiger Williams led the team with 25 penalty minutes in just 7 games. And Matt McRae played well. He had 2 wins, 2.86 goals against average, and a .900 save percentage. But, hey, you're facing these Stanley Cup champions, so, man, it's not going to be good enough. The Flyers also had 3 power play goals in the 4 games they played in the series, so we coast into the semifinals. 4 teams left, and who are the Flyers going to play? The New York Islanders. This was, I believe, their first appearance in the playoffs, and they're going all the way to the semis here. They're showing their strength here, and I'm sure this was a great series. They looking at the Islanders, they eliminated the New York Rangers, rivals to the bitter end, and excellent opening playoff series for the Islanders all time, and you're playing the Rangers. The Islanders eliminated them 2-1, and then in the next round they're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Penguins, yes, they won the first 3 games. They were up 3-0, and the Islanders turned that right around, winning the next 4. So to do the reverse sweep, if you will, and came back 3-0 and eliminated the Penguins. Amazing job there. So looking at the Islanders, deeper look here, they have some options offensively. You got Bob Nystrom. He led the team with 27 goals. You had Billy Harris and rookie Clark Gillies. They had 25. Ed Westfall, Wiley Vet, he had 22. And youngster Dennis Potvin, he had 21 on defense. Great defenseman. Flyers certainly had no problem mixing it up, so, they were the biggest bully team I think I had ever seen and got away with it. Sorry, current Leaf fans, the current Florida Panthers have nothing on these guys. These guys were total bullies. Still, the Islanders had some guys of their own. They had Potvin, Nystrom, Gillies. They had Jerry Hart on defense and Gary Howitt up front. So they had guys that certainly could mix it up too. So they had a great 1-2 combo in net for the Isles. They had Billy Smith, regular season. They had 21 wins, 3 shutouts, 2.78 goals against average, and a .905 save percentage. And they also had Chico Resch. He had 12 wins, 3 shutouts, 2.48 goals against average, and a .916 save percentage. So here we go into this series in the semis. So for game 1, I'm not sure, but Perron must have been sick or had an injury. I'm not exactly sure. He wasn't playing. So this is big. Can the Islanders take advantage of that? The Flyers ended up playing Wayne Stevens, but he played well. He made 21 saves for this shutout win, and Don Selesky scored the game winner just over 6 minutes into the game, and the Flyers took it on home ice by a 4-0 score. Game 2, the Islanders needed to get their offense going here, and they did, as J.P. Parise had 2 goals, 1 on the power play, Dennis Potvin, he also had 2 goals, 1 on the power play, and he had 2 assists, but it was Bobby Clark who scored the game winner early into overtime, a much tighter game, giving the Flyers a 5-4 win. Stevenson was in net again for the Flyers, so they were able to pull out both games at home against the Islanders. Now, game 3, we're going on the road here for Philadelphia. And Bernie Perrant is going to be back in net now. But the Flyers were good at this. They could play some real good defensive hockey. He ended up only facing 14 shots. You're not going to win many games getting that. Chico Rush played great in the Isles net. He made 31 saves, but Reggie Leach scored the game winner just 30 seconds into the third period, and Philly ended up only winning 1-0. So Rush was the star of this game for sure. So Philly's up 3-0. They have not lost a game in the playoffs so far. They're 7-0. Amazing. Game 4 for the Flyers. Rick McLeish scored 2 goals, but Chico Rush keep playing very well. He made 36 saves, and the game went into overtime. There, it was Jude Drouin who scored the game winner for the Islanders, less than 2 minutes into overtime. So they're going back to the Spectrum for Game 5. The Islanders were able to win in Game 4. So in Game 5, Rush still playing well. He made 28 saves, and Billy Harris scored the game winner. And the Islanders are beginning to turn the tables. They won convincingly by a 5-1 score on the road. So there you go, Game 6. It was back to defensive hockey here again. Perrant made 25 saves for the Flyers. Rush made 28 for the Islanders. And this time, the Islanders got one from Hart on defense, who scored the game winner. So they were down 3-0 to the Penguins. Turned that around, won 4-3. Now in the semis, they were down 3-0 to the Flyers. Turned it around, tied up at 3 here. And they're going to a deciding 7th game in Philadelphia. Could they end up doing this 2 series in a row? That would be incredible. Now, I believe the Flyers had total control of this game now. Rick McLeish showed up to play. He ended up scoring a hat trick, including 2 power play markers. One of them was also the game winner. The final went into an empty net. Rush still playing well. He made 31 saves, but the Flyers ended up winning 4-1 to go on to the Stanley Cup final. The Flyers had 4 power play goals in the 7 games. So they've got 7 power play goals over 11 games, which is okay. See how they perform in the finals. So there we go. Now, we're in the 75 Stanley Cup final, and who are they going to play? Well, the Flyers were the number 1 team in the regular season. Who is the number 2 team? The Buffalo Sabres, and that's who they're going to play in the finals. Rarely does that happen, 1 against 2, or 1 in the East versus 1 in the West. It doesn't happen all that often, but it certainly anymore, but it happened here. And the Sabres, they got a bye in the first round, so the second round they played the Chicago Blackhawks. They beat them 4-1. The Hawks had a good team. They then played the Montreal Canadiens in the semifinals. Very, very strong team. They beat them in 6. They beat them 4-2. So Buffalo is a very strong team here. And can they come up against the Flyers here? So we're going to take a look. Looking at Buffalo, they had 9. Count them, 9 different 20-goal scorers. Rick Martin led the team with 52. Rene Robert had 40. Gilbert Perreault, 39. Don Luce with 33. Rick Dudley and Danny Gare with 31. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 30-goal scorers. Wow. Craig Ramsey had 26. Jim Lorentz with 25. And Peter McNabb with 22. So they're going to be messing with the Flyers. But they still had Dudley. Jim Schoenfeld on defense, as well as Jerry King Kong. That was his nickname, Korab. A couple of guys on defense who could mix it up for the Sabres. In net, they're going to go with Jerry Desjardins, who only played 9 games during the season. But he's in his prime. He's 30 years old. He's ready to go for it. And he was showing the Sabres he was the man to play in the net. So here we are in the finals. Game 1 was at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Bill Barber ended up scoring 2 for the Flyers, and Perron had 27 saves. The Flyers took game 1 by a 4-1 score. Game 2 was tighter, and Desjardins made 22 saves, but Bobby Clark scored the power play game winner in the third. He also had an assist, and the Flyers won it. Tighter score this time, 2-1. And once again, they took both games at home to open the series. The Flyers will need to get their game intact here. They've only scored 2 goals in the 2 games. They're going to somehow beat Perron here. And the Flyers had a 3-2 lead after the first period in Game 3. But Buffalo coach Floyd Smith, who would later coach in Toronto, he turned to Roger Crozier and put him in the net. Turned out to be a good decision. He made 27 saves from that point on. And then the teams ended up skating into overtime, tied at 4. In overtime, it was Robert who lit the lamp, and he also had 2 assists during the game. And the Sabres won 5-4 to get this series going for them. It was 2-1. For Game 4, Desjardins was back in the net for Buffalo, and he made 23 saves. Jim Lorentz scored the game winner, and the Sabres tied up the series at 2, and they won Game 4 by a 4-2 score. Game 5 was back in Philly, and now David the Hammer Schultz, I think he scored 2, and these were his first 2 in the playoffs, and Perron made 23 saves. Flyers really took it to Buffalo, and they beat them by a 5-1 score in Game 5. So we're going to Game 6 at the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium, and I was able to see this game as well. And the commentators for the game was Don Earl and Gene Hart. And I really enjoyed their games. They were really good. I think that, they were for the Flyers, their commentators, but I enjoyed their games. And not for the Flyers, who else? Bernie Perron. But for the Sabres, they're going back to Crozier here. See if he can pull out a win for the Sabres here. And Bruce Hood is the referee for the game. They mentioned that Rick Martin was hit by a roll of paper from the 3rd deck in Buffalo, and he had to leave the ice and get stitches. This is crazy to me because we're in Buffalo. He plays for Buffalo. You'd think they would aim at a Flyer. That tells me they just threw it up in the air, I guess, and it just came down and hit Rick there. So in the first, Buffalo was getting some good chances, but Perron was kicking them out. Barber was going in all alone, but Rene Robert caught up to him and tipped the puck away. Hood called him on holding as Barber fell to the ice. And while looking at this, there was a little pressure put on by Robert, but I gotta say, I would have let this one go. As well, I'm cheering for the Sabres, so I'm in their corner. Take that, if you will, whatever that means. And there was no score after the first period. In the second, the Flyers' Ted Harris cross-checked the Sabres' Fred Stanfield from behind into the boards. Pretty dirty there. Hood called him. He didn't get away with it. Buffalo starts getting some real good chances here, but Perron, he's keeping this door closed. The door is locked, and Buffalo is not able to put the puck in the net. In addition, some of the Flyers players are getting some good blocks. They're blocking the puck quite well here. No goals in the second period as well, and we're through 2, and we got no score. Some good chances, mostly by the Sabres. So they're really wanting to tie this series up. Now in the third, before the ice can really even dry, Bob Kelly takes the puck from behind the net and tucks one in behind Crozier to put the Flyers on the board. The Sabres, started then parading to the penalty box as Martin and Larry Carrier, I think is how you say the name. I forget now, but both picked up minors. They were able to kill them off. Punch Imlach and his wife, he was with the Sabres at the time. They were watching the game. Punch looking pretty stressed out, and for very good reason. We're in the finals here. He was the general manager at the time. Buffalo put the pressure on the Flyers and were getting chances in front of the net. Ed Van Impe was laying in the crease. He then put his hand over the puck. But he pushed it over to Perron, and then he covered the puck. The crowd was going wild in Buffalo, but that play was fine because he passed the puck to Perron, who covered it. He wasn't covering the puck, he was passing it. So it was fine. No penalty shot on that play there. Bill Clement is left alone out front when Kindrachuk was taken out by both Brian Spencer and Korab. Watching the replay here, in the end, Korab should have been aware of Clement. Spencer is there with Kindrachuk, so he should have stayed with Clement. He did not, so Clement is left alone. He comes in, puts one past Crozier to give the Flyers a 2-0 lead. Huge goal there. The Sabres kept trying to put one in the Flyers' net, but Perron was sharp and didn't allow the Sabres to score one goal at all in this game, and the Flyers win the game 2-0. They win the series 4-2 and win the 1975 Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. So looking at the Flyers, it was Rick McLeish who led the way with 11 goals and 20 points. Bobby Clark led the team with 12 assists, and Dave Schultz, he had 83 penalty minutes in just 17 games. Perron ended up with a 10-5 record with 4 shutouts, a .924 save percentage, and a 1.89 goals against average. He wasn't the only goalie. You also had Wayne Stevens. He went 2-0. He had 1 shutout, so the team had 5 shutouts. He had a .922 save percentage and a 1.95 goals against average. Big wow to both of the goalies here, and as well, Perron ended up winning the Conn Smythe as the playoff MVP. The Sabres look good to me. I didn't end up only seeing 2 of the games. I also saw one. Didn't talk about it, but a game they played Montreal as well. In the end, though, they're not far from winning a cup here. When I look at this team, in the end, the Flyers they had Bernie Perron, who was showing he was the best in the league and could lead his team to total victory with another Stanley Cup victory here. So it's another summer to reset for the Leafs, and we will see what they can do to improve their club for the next season, 1975-76. But you know what? We're going to wait till next season, and we'll get to that. So anyways, I hope you are enjoying some Stanley Cup playoffs going on right now. But until next time, or until next season, hey, maybe next year, right? Maybe next year. Go Leafs, go.